So I'm so excited to talk today about the marital home. And the big question is, should I stay or should I go? Should I stay in the house in the marital home or should I sell it or should I let my spouse have it? Um, so many people are struggling with this question, and a lot of people think that their children are, dealing with the divorce and all of those changes, and they think that they really need to stay in the marital home for the children because they don't want to put them through another change. And what I always tell people is that if you're staying in the house and you can't afford it and you have financial stress, that's really bad for children. And I'm so excited to be here with Tami Wollensak, who is a certified divorce lending professional who can help us make this decision and know how to not have financial stress so that you know what decision to make and you're not stuck and thinking back and forth and not knowing how to make this mistake. So thank you so much, Tami, for sharing your wisdom with us. How do you people get unstuck?
Thanks so much for having me, Jill. It's such a huge question that I often hear as well, and one that I personally lived. And it's the first thing you think of. I remember sitting in the chair and thinking, well, as long as I keep the house, then everything will be okay. And I've been in the business at that point in time. I've been in the mortgage business for 30 years, right? And I still didn't think through all the nuances about the piece of real estate. And, I just was so micro focused and thought if we could just kick it down kick the can down the lane and not worry about it and that everything would be fine. And that was not the case. I think looking back on that, if I would have been able to meet with some of the professionals that I now know exist, like myself and other coach and people that can really guide you to understanding what you're trying to accomplish when you're going through a divorce. And it's really numbers, right? You really need to know all the numbers before you can make an informed decision because I didn't know all the numbers and I kind of knew what my mortgage payment was, but didn't realize that I may have to refinance my mortgage. I may not have the mortgage payment that I have today. And it wasn't just the mortgage payment, Jill, it was everything that comes along with that piece of real estate that I owned. And we were a dual income family, so without another income, the mortgage may be one thing, but what about all the other stuff? And as I was talking to you earlier about the maintenance of the home, sometimes is something that gets completely overlooked. The utilities, how much are the utilities every month? How much does it cost to maintain? Well, I live in Illinois. And, there's snow removal. Like, if you're not going to hire somebody to go shovel your snow, you're going to be out there shoveling it. If there's fall cleanup, what we call fall cleanup, all the leaves dump on the lawn, and you need to either go out there and rake them up and put them in bags and do all the things yourself, or you're hiring somebody to do it. Well, hiring people to do things for you is not exactly cheap sometimes
No?
and plumbing issues. I started having uh, appliances that were aging out, small things, but big things when it's just your income and you have to write a check for $500 for something. That sometimes feels really stressful. And what I realized for myself is the stress of all of that outweighed me feeling like my kids were safe and I feel like they could feel that energy of me just constantly stressing out about how I was going to meet my monthly obligations in this big house. And once I came to that realization and I figured out how to downsize and figured out how to right size my own budget,
Hmm.
right? What does housing look like for me and my budget moving forward? My kids were Of course, they loved having the giant basement that at the time they played Nerf Wars in. I don't know if Nerf Wars is a thing anymore, but it was. They were at an age where they didn't know any better. Their world was like a 1 block radius. They were 8 and 10.
Mm.
They rode their bike across the street. They walked down the street to go to see Johnny, and that's all they knew. But as I talked through that with them and gave them the confidence that it was going to be okay, they were still going to get to see their friends. We're still going to be able to go to see, play dates were the thing. I think they're still play dates. And and I made it an adventure, and they were able to perceive this big move that I was putting off through the eyes of positivity,
That's so important. That is so important.
right?
If you present it that way, kids
Yeah,
will, they're so resilient.
so resilient and like excitement. And I actually put them in the same room where we had a big house, they had their own rooms. Even at the ages they were in, even though they had their own rooms, they were in each other's rooms all the time, right? They were still in each other's spaces, but they had separate bedrooms. But so I put them in the same room. We got bunk beds. I let them decorate the room however they wanted. Their dad did the same thing. And it just really was such a financial relief for me and allowed me to start healing, right? And start moving forward in my own life. So I
Yeah.
guess the long answer to your question is really understanding all of your options before you make this decision. And then if you have all the information, the numbers, the dollars and cents, you've sat down, you put this is how much income I'm going to have coming in. This is how much income is going to be necessary. And if those numbers work for you, great. Then you know you're making the right decision. But
Right.
if those numbers don't work for you, at least you can pivot and have a plan B, right? You're not coming up with a plan B like at the last ninth hour. And there's some really big nuances that go along with keeping a home, and then selling it post-divorce, stuff that I didn't think of
Yeah,
either.
the $250,000 tax
Right. Taxable
benefit.
gain, right, on the
Yep. Can you explain
sale
that?
of the house. So basically, if you're married, you have a capital gains exemption of twice as much if you sell a piece of real estate as you do as a single individual. That capital gains exemption goes down by 50%. And that wasn't even on my radar. I'm not a CPA,
Right.
right? Until I started learning more and being more educated and stuff. And when I did go to sell the house, all that stuff was being looked at by my CPA, right?
Right.
All
If
that
you do
stuff
it
was
within 2 years, I think you still get the
right.
benefit, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So you really want to know, because if this is like a 5-year plan for you, hey, I'm not going to sell the house for 5 years, and there's a big capital gain. You bought the house for 200, now it's worth a million, which sometimes has been the case over these last 10 years, right?
Right.
Real estate is really appreciated. Um, you have to be prepared that you could be causing yourself more of a financial burden.
Right. Yeah. And so once you figure out your budget and what you can afford, um, and you realize you can't afford the house,
Yeah,
then there's other options. And a lot of people are like, well, where am I going to live? How am I going to, have my kids be okay? And what I tell people is that there's always renting. Like you could rent
yes,
temporarily while you
right.
figure out your finances and see how you're doing, so you don't have to make a big commitment. A lot of people do that. Um, Rent for a year or two, and kids, like you said, are excited about it, and they don't, it's a new place. I had actually my current husband. He rented for a year and they had a little square in the backyard. They could barely fit like this little coal barbecue and they would all sit around it and it wasn't a yard, it was just like a little square. And that's what he did for the first year. And the kids thought it was great because they were all, snuggled together, doing s'mores out in the backyard. You can make things fun for your children if you are positive and if you have faith in yourself that you will figure this out. So if you can't figure it out, to buy something right away, rent for a year, take your time and figure it out.
I
That's
say that same thing, Jill, and I'm in lending, and I always say there is no shame in renting as you have such a big life transition for yourself. It's okay. You'll be a homeowner again at some point in time in your life, but don't put all the pressure on yourself that it has to be immediate. And don't put all the pressure on yourself that you have to maintain something that's not financially feasible for you.
right. Well, this was really great. Tammy, thank you for all of your knowledge. And how can people get in touch with you if they are looking to refinance or purchase?
My website is TamiWollensak.com, and that's where I have an open calendar link. And if you're interested in, just a free 15-minute consult with me, just jump on my calendar, find a convenient time for you. And I'm on all the social media platforms as well. But that's usually the best place to start is let's have a conversation. It's not going to cost you anything to gather information and get some at least a starting point for your thought process, right? Is sitting at home and letting your mind wander and just having sleepless nights over it is never any good.
Yeah. And Tammy's just one of the many amazing divorce professionals we have in the directory. And I will put all of your information with this video. And thank you.
Huge, Jill.